All right, good evening, YouTube. Been a minute since I've been on here, a long minute, but I've been busy with quite a bit of stuff. I'm really thrashing to get everything ready for Sand Sport that we just finished this weekend. So I'm hoping it'll taper off a little bit. We got lots of product in stock. I wanted to do a real quick video so I can get this onto my YouTube channel of our YXZ turbo kit. We debuted this at Sand Sport this weekend, so we're gonna we are in the process of doing this production YXZ turbo kit to kind of fill the void of products that just aren't available for something of this level, kind of like what we've done with some of our other items like ignition and some bigger fuel pumps and that kind of stuff. So these guys, it's for you guys that are going after real lofty power goals, have these real fast YXZs, which is that's my favorite thing in the world. So I've done a lot of these. I've had cars come in here and we've done custom pieces. I've done individual parts, intercoolers, manifolds, helped a lot of people build stuff. I got, I don't know, probably 15 or so quote unquote custom kits out there that I've put together for guys. So we really we buckled down and have made a full production version of this based on pretty much all the testing I've done with everybody's stuff and our own stuff over the last 6 years. This is a big turbo kit, so you got a big precision 55-58 mid-frame turbo. This is not a small frame. It's kind of hard to see how big it is here, but it looks pretty massive. I mean, it looks cool on the car. These aren't that big. It's a 55mm compressor, so a little bit on the smaller side for an E-cover, which is this big compressor cover with a 4-inch inlet and a 2.5-inch outlet. GT35R sized turbo physically on the exterior. 55mm compressor, 58mm turbine. This is what we found works really well on this 1000cc Yamaha. I mean, on paper it seems like it's pretty big, but on the dyno and when you're driving this car, this thing is every bit as responsive as your 2860 Garrett, which would be your GYTR turbo kit. Granted, saying that, I've done most of my testing on E85, which does help turbos spool up a little bit faster. So just disclaimer, but very confident that anybody that does this is going to be pretty happy with the results. Precision turbo. This is 3-inch diameter exhaust, side mounted. It's got our fancy sheet metal bracket that bolts to your frame. This does fit 2016 to 18 chassis along with the 2019 and newer chassis. Now, I have not verified this on a 24 and newer car, but as far as everything else is concerned, I think that's for the most part where the engine sits is the same as 2019 to 2023. So kind of to be determined on that. I like the turbo in this position for accessibility, meaning you can get to all of your spark plugs, you can get to the top side of your throttle bodies, easily without taking anything apart, which, can be a thing when especially if you're out in the sand dunes or something and you got to pull some plugs or, do some maintenance on the car. You're not taking the whole thing apart to accomplish that. So that was a big goal on my end. And that's why I've done the last 10 or so of these. I've done them with the turbo inlet facing the rear of the car. That's kind of our same thought process with the intercooler. And this is primarily the only intercooler I've ever used with the YXZ because it's amazing. The core itself is basically 4 width, 4 thickness by 11 and some change Garrett water to air core. It's actually rated at 750 horsepower, so it's very much up to the task. Makes a nice package. We have our O-ring flange, which I've talked about in some other videos. I capture the throttle bodies. our intercooler, we actually mount it to the frame. So you get these adjustable mounts that clamp on and then bolt to the top side of the intercooler. That's what holds it in place. Now, the advantage of that is you're also capturing the throttle bodies, you know, and the rubber boots down here. So none of this stuff comes apart when you're, you know, boosting on this thing real hard. So, you know, I've liked that. Less hardware and less messing around to get it to work right. Just put it on and everything's locked in. You're good to go. Again, accessibility here. You know, a lot of times you got to get to these hoses on the map sensor or whatever when you're having an issue. So wide open can get to it. Same thing with the bottom side. You know, you got an oil cooler that lives here, and you got a thermostat housing and some stuff over here maybe you need to get to. Like, it's up. Basically, we're just using this space up in this corner that's otherwise not used for anything. So I thought it was pretty trick. Production version, we've spent some time on it to make sure that it works with the factory oil lines. You know, on a 19 and newer car, you got some coolant pipes that come up through here. None of that needs to change. All works with the car. Tried to limit the amount of connections for high boost reliability. So you got one silicone coupler here, and you have one silicone coupler here, and that's it. One charge pipe. So a lot less pieces to worry about coming apart when you're running high boost. We use the Turbo Smart 34 millimeter compact valve, and we recirculate that up into the intake. So you're keeping dirt out of the valve. You can still hear this blow off valve very loud. Obviously you got a big air filter, so it's not muffling very much noise. Air filter is a, oh man, my brain is not gonna work right now. AFE Power oiled filter with their pre-wear or outer filter, which is what I personally run in the sand, and it does a really good job of keeping the fine particulate out. These things do get dirty, especially when you're moving that much air. So if you're doing long weekend, you're gonna get this filter dirty. Where it lives here behind the motor, you know, you just got your one connection. You pop that thing out of there while the car's sitting on the ground. You don't have to take anything apart again, so easy accessibility. You can either have a spare filter or you can, you know, clean it while you're out there. I personally, I just take an extra one with me, and I change it after like a day or two, but you could probably technically just keep going. I just don't like when my filters get real dirty. What else? Integrated boost control valve. The valve itself is not part of the turbo kit, but I've given you a mount and the plumbing built into the intercooler, which keeps it real simple. You know, you have your lower pressure source line coming out, and then you have your controlled circuit, which goes to the top side of the wastegate. So hoses and fittings and stuff, as far as that's concerned, comes with the kit. If you want to buy just the valve as part of the kit, I have those in stock. I can terminate, I use Deutsch connector, but I could terminate that to plug into your air control valve, the smog valve, because that's what most of your aftermarket engine managements are using as a boost control solenoid. So I'm not sure if Power Vision does that or what, but I know with a Motec or an M-Tron or any of the plug and play stuff, that is where they, you know, that's the pinout that they use for the boost control solenoid. So that, I don't have that add-on on the website, but you know, obviously first couple of these, you guys are gonna be calling me and kind of tricking them out how you want them. So exhaust manifold, we make this 304 billet flange, which is expensive because it's 304. I want to say just the blank to make it is like $90. And then there's some heavy machine work there. 304 does not like to machine nicely, so it's a high dollar cutters and a lot of time to do that. But that is high grade weldable stainless, you know, that's meant for the heat cycling that these things see. And it's all one piece, so it goes on to the studs and comes off of the studs really effortlessly compared to some of these multi-piece flanges that you really got to fight with. So that's why we've done that. equal length, equal bend radius runners, very specific runner length based on our turbo testing. It works really, really good. Kind of gives you the best of all worlds. And I guess that's really it. The exhaust you saw. Not what you're not seeing in this video is there's a front radiator that mounts in the car for the intercooler system, and then there's our brushless water pump that comes with it, and then obviously the hoses to make those connections. So you got the intercooler, you got two fittings. You got one here, water in, and then on this end, water out, and that just goes up through the transmission tunnel up to the front of the car. So I haven't fully decided what I'm doing with that. I think the front heat exchanger, I have them, but I don't need to sell it to everybody. Anybody with a 2016 to 2018 YXZ already has a radiator in the front of the car that they can absolutely not use at this power level. So anything from base to, this is my opinion, just opinion, but anything above about 200, 250 horsepower with a front radiator will overheat. So doing yourself a solid by either putting a full kit radiator bolt on, a Hess or something in the back of the car, or if you're converting a Jeep radiator, those work amazing. The Cherokee aluminum single pass, or you can go to a OE Yamaha 19 and newer radiator. Those also work amazing, even at this power level. Weller makes some billet tanks, which are pretty trick for that thing, and that's a really solid way to go. Either way, on a 16 to 18, at this power level, you have to move the radiator to the back of the car, which leaves you with either your OE radiator in the front, or a lot of guys will have a CBR or something that they've upgraded in the front. That makes a perfect heat exchanger for this turbo kit. So that can be some savings if that's what you already have. We can just send you the pump and the lines and the fittings to connect all that stuff up, but retain that piece that you already own in the front of the car. So again, that's just a question. Call me up and we can figure out what you got, and what's the best route to make that happen. Now, as far as power on this kit, from testing that we have done, this is the true 300 horsepower at the tire on pump gas at lower boost, 16 to 18 pound range. That comes down to your motor build. It's 10.5 to 1 or 9.5 to 1. If you're really wanting to make power on pump gas, this will do it. At low boost, which I consider low boost like anything under 20. You start getting into the low 20s, 20 to 25, you're getting into the 375 to 400 horsepower range, and that would be race gas or ethanol. And then we have tested this setup with all the higher boost stuff I've done has been primarily ethanol. 30 pounds of boost on E85 is in the ballpark of around 450 to the tire, and then if you're 35 pounds or a little bit above that, what I consider the Jesus tune-up, anything above 30 on a non-modified cylinder head Yamaha is you're pushing your luck, but that will do 500 to the tire. So capable of 500. Do I recommend 500 to anybody outside of a drag race only environment? Not necessarily. 400 to 450 is very achievable, and that makes for a very reliable car, especially with this turbo, because you got no back pressure. This is a bigger housing. This is an 8.6. I think it's an 8.6 on a precision, which is pretty big. But that pretty much gives you a 1-to-1 drive pressure ratio, meaning for every 1 pound of boost, you have like a 1 pound of exhaust pressure. So the engine stays at equilibrium. You're not leaving exhaust pressure in the cylinder during your overlap, intake and exhaust stroke. So you're not creating massive amounts of dead cylinder pressure, which is one of the things that likes to kill these head gaskets on these motors. So, everything is opened up, flows real good. easy, really easy on everything. I mean, that sounds strange, but for something when you're pushing it to that kind of power, you know, this is really the only way you can do it and have it survive, and in my opinion. Especially with a mild motor build where you're not, you know, you're just doing head studs and calling it a day as far as the head gasket's concerned. So just trying to get it out there. I don't plan on making a million of these things or selling a million of them. I just wanted to have an offering that gets, you know, the handful of guys that are out there that are currently boosted and looking for something bigger. It gives them an option. Or if you're building a new build and your goal is something lofty, anything above 350 horsepower, then this is something that really suits your needs really well. And we've strived to make everything fit perfectly, and the finish is good, and you know, this is relatively easy to install. I will have a complete set of installation documents that go with this on the website once I finish it. We do have one, I guess for the most part, pretty stock car that's coming in here, so we can go through and take all the factory stuff off and bolt all this stuff on and run the oil lines and do all the stuff, the water pump, intercooler lines, that kind of stuff, so that we have a manual to go with this for the install. Because sometimes I'm a believer that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So just trying to make it easy. Turbo comes pre-clocked, meaning, you know, the orientation of the exhaust housing, the center cartridge, and the compressor is already set up. So you bolt the manifold on, bolt the turbo on, and then everything lines up. You're not screwing around trying to get all that stuff set and get it lined up. We'll send it to you ready to go. So, and then anything else, Turbo Smart, Comp 40, Wastegate, these things are awesome. I use them on everything, all the high dollar sports cars and the other stuff that we work on. Turbo Smart is rock solid, never had a single failure on anything, and in the 15 years I've been using them. I can't say that about the tile stuff that I used to use, but that's why we use Turbo Smart now. So thanks guys. I know these videos, I'm not a good cameraman, but just wanted to show it off. And you got my information, jteperformanceengineering.com. I'll put a link in the description to the website. I got a little more on this up on the website, but you know, again, I'm a phone person, so if you want to talk about it, give me a call and we'll get you squared up. So appreciate everything you guys do, and I look forward to seeing these things out in the wild. So thanks guys. Bye.